Welcome everyone to the fifth already Meet the Experts webinar. So we're gonna deep dive and take a behind the scenes look at the Xillio platform. So let's start. So my name is Xill4 Demo. I'm here every webinar.
My name is Gerk-Jan. I've been working here at Xillio for a couple of years now as part of the software development team, a software developer, part of the Xill4 team. Where I'm of course responsible for like all programming related duties, so making new features, bug fixes, testing, peer reviewing, whatever. But also I am a release manager, so my job is to make sure that every 2 weeks at the end of the sprint we have a new version of the product that went through all of our Q&A pipelines, approved, and we know, okay, it's ready, tested, let's go use it. And also important part, I was one of the catalyst, I think, behind the development of the new UI, which is something I'd be more than happy to talk about.
Great. Yeah, I'm very excited. And especially I know that you're going to show Xill4 and then not just a migration that we do with it, because it has been shown before, but we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive. So that's great. We're talking about Xill4, but maybe to give our audience some context, I wanted to share our product suite basically and how Xill4 fits in. It's the key product, I would say. It's the product we had, I mean, the predecessors, right? Xill2, Xill3, we've had for the longest, but this is how it fits in. So it's Xill4 platform is really the platform, the low-code ETL platform where you can do your migrations, your integrations with, and it has a monitoring component in it as well. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Next to that, we have content care, for instance. It runs on your SharePoint environment. We had a webinar about that. We have the link redirector. We've got some partner products, but the focus now is on Xill4 platform, the platform that's also of interest for our partners and many of our clients too, basically do migrations and integrations. And we're going to show a lot about that, but also talk a little bit about what was the reason to create it as it is. To kick it off, you can explain, I mean, I tell this from business and a commercial perspective, but what really is Xill4, if you want to describe that?
Yeah, so Xill4, I think it's one of the most advanced, sophisticated, low-code platforms for doing content migrations, complex content migrations, but also the validation and like the making sure that everything we did migrate is done correctly in a reliable way, compliant with all rules. That's also a very big part of that. And also Xill4 is more than just only migrating content. You can also integrate and monitor actually your content with it. So it's very flexible.
So we now have Xill4, you're part of that team. So what really led to the inception of it? If I again look at it from a business and commercial perspective, then it was mostly about our partners and our customers, clients that wanted to use the software themselves. But because what we had before, it was a very powerful scripting environment, basically.
Yeah.
Also a migration platform, you could do anything, but it was pretty difficult to onboard, to adopt to it.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, the big reason is how do we make it easier for our partners, for our customers to use it, with still sticking to our vision that it needs to be flexible, that it needs to be resilient, and that compliant migration part that you just touched upon is also a very important part. But you can probably tell other things about that.
Yeah. So Xill3, as you said, it was basically just an IDE. So scripting language on top of Java with quite a lot of functions that were abstracted. So like some common operations, which was great. You know, it's better than nothing. I think it's pretty flexible. But like you said, the barrier of entry is pretty high. So in order to work with Xill3, you have to be a code expert, not only a migration expert, but a code expert. And with Xill4, we really wanted to take what we had learned, all the knowledge we had, all our migration engineers had, and build that into one product. So we decided to go the low-code route because this way we could have, we call components, and these components are abstractions over common like functionality. So for example, we have a source system, Box.com. We have a component that talks to their API and is able to retrieve data from there. And you don't have to know anything about how that component works under the hood. You don't have to know anything about the API from Box.com. You can just take our documentation, fill in the credentials, and retrieve your data and do whatever you want with it. So I think that was pretty good already. That's one big reason why we wanted Xill4.
I think one of the reasons we had also was the technology was outdated, right?
Yeah. So Xill3 also is well, yeah, of course it is slightly outdated indeed, and I think the software was really nearing its end of life.
Yeah.
So there were a few like small minor bugs that we were aware of that were not going to be fixed in Xill3 because it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, and what I wanted to state, so Xill3 always was one of the fastest tools around there. It was quite efficient, the Java runtime.
Yeah.
But with Xill4, we already saw right from the start it was going to perform so much better.
Yeah. So Xill3 was, well, it was sequential basically. So you write these scripts, you have these steps, and all these steps in your migration basically. And what you did is you just executed one step, and then once it completely was done, you moved on to the next. But Xill4, we kind of built with another idea in mind. So in Xill4, we have these flows, we call them, and flow has like a starting point, and then all these components that do things, abstraction.
Yeah.
And basically, there can be multiple things going on in the flow at the same time. So it's asynchronous. That I think has also led to quite a big performance increase. Plus the fact that we're using newer technology that are good. Yeah, so I believe already like one of the first versions, so here 1.5 year back or something, we ran some tests. Performance overall was already like 30% up from Xill3, and I think we're gonna improve a lot from there. So interesting.
Yeah, so let's take a look.
So we have projects, of course. You can multiple projects. Within a project, you can create flows or import flows. Let's make a demo flow, and we have all these components. So like I said, one thing we wanted to do was lower the barrier of entry, so make it easier to get started making migrations. So flow starts with a trigger. You can have like a component like box.com. Yeah, for each component, of course, you have documentation. So what this API component does, this connection component, it allows you to get folder information and list items in the folder. We can get file information, versions, download files, metadata. So all the stuff's here. You have some configuration. So all of that is documented. I think that was one of the great things about Xill4 is that we have all these components, but we also have all this documentation. So not only like how to use the component, but I believe as well there's information about some common systems we've worked with. I think this is also like a little treasure trove of migration knowledge, basically, all kind of accumulated into this one product. So yeah, you can build flows.
And if we take one step back or look at it from structure of the solution, so you can create a project. So say you're going to do a project with one of your clients as a partner, create a project. Within that project, you create flows, or you use flows that are already there, right? And within a flow, if you open a flow, you have a massive list of components that you can use to do things.
So all of these components are basically just abstractions over common functionalities. There's things like prints and logs for databases. We have a content store, and I think the content store, that's a huge thing, because what you usually do is you get a component like this, you get your data from a source system, and then you put it into our document store, content store. And basically the content store is a database with a very strict structure that is suitable basically for any kind of content. So any kind of content can go in there. Because we have a very set structure and way of operating, there's a lot of stuff we can check and validate. So what we do when we do ETL, extract from the source, put it in the content store, it has a certain structure. Then we transform it such that it fits the target system. But there's that step in between, like normally what's happening in Xill3, you just do it and hope that everything was transformed.
Well, you report on it.
You report on it and you try to validate, but every case is different. Everybody does it in their own way. So that can become problematic. So how can you guarantee that indeed everything was transformed properly from source to target? And then because we can't validate that now, and once you know for certain, okay, all the data is there, it's all transformed, then you can hit the button and load it into the target system and validate indeed, is everything loaded into the target system? So I think that is already like, just the content store alone is major improvement over our previous way of working. And it's not only this software and the documentation, we also have like Xillio Community. So our community, I mean, there's support, Q&A, you can feature requests, bug fixes, but whatever needs to happen, it comes directly to the development team and we fix it. We also have these things called accelerators. So what I think is one of the great things about Xill4 is these accelerators, which is basically a collection flows, which is kind of like a culmination of all our migration knowledge. So we have all these flows already pre-ready to kickstart your migration. So, for example, Box.com source, I can download it. So I downloaded it on my local machine, and inside Xill4, I can import it. So I can choose flows. Now it doesn't show you the window, but I can select all my flows. Because this accelerator contains like 6 flows. Each is like basically a separate task, basically.
You use Xillio. You're you're a partner using Xillio. Your client says, "Hey, I have another source. It's Box."
Yeah.
Then you go to Xillio. Can we also do Box? You get the accelerator.
Yeah.
You download all these flows, or you download the accelerator, which contains 5 flows.
And I mean, all these accelerators we test, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So those are these are the connectors.
Yeah. So for each accelerator that we support, we actually have like tests and like actually an environment running, like the source and target environments. We actually have them running and perform the tests on there.
Yeah.
To make sure that they will always work, basically. But I can import them, so I have all these flows imported one go. And in this case, Box.com, there's a bunch of them, and each of them does a separate thing, and you could just run any of them.
Yeah.
So, we have extract users. Okay, so I want to extract all user information and get that into our doc or content store. So that's what this does, Box.com component gets the data, the users, template engines, transforms it into a structure that we can put into our document store. Document store inserts, we can validate it. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's really powerful.
So this is kind of a pre-built connector
template.
So you can either use it to kickstart, but if there's no template, then still this low-code environment enables you to quickly create one.
I think
to get out of your custom source that you have, right?
I think so, definitely.
That's at least that was the vision behind it, and I think we managed to create that.
I think I've told you this before, but the vision I at least have is that you can basically go from any source to preferably any target, but we focus mostly on the Microsoft stack. So, SharePoint and such. So like even a USB stick, a drive in my laptop, be able to migrate from there. Those kinds of things.
Those are the easy ones, probably.
Oh, yeah, that's super easy.
Any questions from anyone in the webinar? To clarify, link redirector is not part of Xill4. It is indeed a separate product with a separate license. It works together with Xill4, so we have, again, accelerators probably that make sure you populate the link redirector database based on your migration, because of course it's, from a project perspective, very much intertwined, but it's not part of the platform. No. And next topic we wanted to discuss, to give a little bit of introduction to that, is the roadmap, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming. I think that's very exciting. Here's the question: is there connected to do custom SQL queries from an external document management system? Depends what the database is.
So we have a DB query component, which under the hood uses SQLize, which is like an ORM for basically any kind of SQL database. So you can actually, I can configure Xill4 to basically be able to, not only MySQL, but any kind of SQL database, connect to it and do queries there. So any kind of query you can think of, we can run it.
And I know we use it, right? Because I know we have connectors also built that don't go through an API but go directly through the database.
Yes. We, for example, DB stores. I can.
So here Frank names edocs, and that's actually one of the connectors we built on the database.
So we what you can see, we have API connectors and we have DB connectors. And sometimes the API is the better choice, right? Because if it's fast enough and it supports all the things we need to do, then it's great. But in some cases, it is not, and then you need to go directly to the database, which is also faster. But because there's can be a lot of changes between the database, between versions, it's a lot harder to create abstractions or at least components for it. So we have some flows that do these kind of things.
But I know for edocs we go through the database because there's no REST API. And if you have another question, can we add custom metadata values and MIP labels when migrating to SharePoint, Microsoft 365? Yes, definitely. So basically any transformation that you'd like to do or any custom metadata, but also setting labels, that's all possible. I don't know if you can show because you're more on the
Yeah, so
the-
indeed,
on the
I'm
tools side than the implementation side, but
Yeah.
I know it's possible for sure. And yeah, if you want to see Nick, then you can arrange that as well. So can you tell a little bit about the roadmap? I know there's one thing you want to discuss for sure. That's the new UI.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, you might wonder from a business perspective, like why design a new UI? I mean, it's a lot of work. There already was a UI, it was working, right? And we did a lot of quality assurance on it to make sure that it worked properly, and it did. But from a development perspective, it was, well, let's go back a little bit. So in the beginning of the project, the team was a lot smaller, and there were some design decisions that were made. One of them, a really big one, was to build Xill4 on top of a framework called Total.js.
Yeah.
So Total.js runs in Node.js. Node.js is a runtime for JavaScript. And basically what it already provided was out of the box a UI and a backend for, well, creating these flows and handling all the messages in between. So all you had to do was write the components.
Yeah.
So what we could focus on was make sure that we had all the components that we wanted based on the input from our migration engineers.
Yeah.
So it was great because you super quickly have a product that you can give to your migration engineers and use and iterating and feedback on. And we work agile. So our team uses Scrum, and of course you want feedback quickly. So that was awesome. But then about a year ago or something, well, we had all the components that we wanted. But now we started to notice that we got requests for features in the UI, more extensions, things, buttons to click, things to do. But that was pretty hard to implement. And there were some limitations on the things we could do because we built it on top of a third-party framework, basically. So we decided, okay, we need to move away from there if we want to keep meeting our user requirements and scale up, like make it even faster. So the first step there was to really replace the UI, because if you can, well, what we did is we replicated the old UI and then kept the old backend, so kept talking to the old backend. But now, because we have complete control over this UI, which we built in React, and now that we can also build a new backend, and then just all we have to do in the front end is just some API calls and it works, right? But now we can do whatever we want. There's no limitation on us.
So a couple of examples I know is that you can collapse flows, right? Because it wasn't possible in the framework. I think, because you had these tremendously large flows that were scary sometimes.
Yeah, so there's so many things like, for example, multi-import is a super simple example. So in the old UI, it wasn't possible to import multiple flows at the same time, or even delete some of them at the same time, So then you would end up with as a migration engineer, you would at some point have like 40, 50 flows in there, and you lose sight pretty quickly of what you're working on. So there's just all these minor things that would just took a ridiculous amount of time to implement sometimes, and then we decided, okay, we can't do it, we won't do it because it takes too much time.
Yeah.
And for example, with groups, that what used to happen is that these things that are in a group wouldn't like move with it and stuff, and there's these tiny things. But yeah, this is still the beta version, what I'm showing right now. So our migration engineers are mostly using this now.
Yep.
But we're still like working on some minor things.
Okay. And then next step is new backend, right? On TypeScript Node.js. One of the things I think is very interesting, we have had Insights as a separate product within the platform for a long time. Also with Xill3 already, it runs on the same data model, same database, but we're going to move it into the platform, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. So indeed, like Insights, basically, I talked about the validation and compliance. So basically making sure that we did everything right, and the reporting. And we had Insights as a separate product or separate from Xill4. Basically, it was Kibana, Elasticsearch, Kibana dashboard that allowed you to do these things. But now we're actually building this as part of Xill4. So we're currently developing basically charts and graphs and data visualization that we're going to put straight into here.
Yep.
So then when you do these validation steps, you can immediately see the results in Xill4, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You don't have to switch application, basically. That's it. I mean, it works, but now it's part of one. Then it will be part of one.
It will be faster and it will be easier, and I think it's a part, integral part of like the migration journey. So like it makes sense to have it in here, you know.
And then another one is of course AI. I mean, I think they're already implemented to some extent, right?
Correct.
Code assisting.
So what we did is we added AI code completions to code components. So there's still some code involved in the process. It's impossible to get rid of all coding. You can abstract a lot of things, but in the end you will need some if and else statements and some stuff like that. But yeah, we have AI code completions now. I currently don't have an OpenAI license set up on my machine, so I can't demo it, but it's there. I've seen it work. It's pretty cool, and that was super recent. And I think we have ideas about how to do more stuff with AI in Xill4 in the future.
And also together with Microsoft, right? So create a co-pilot that helps you with your migration if you move into Microsoft. So basically just ask questions. What flow do I use? What component do I use here? That would be amazing.
Yeah, because we have like this whole base of truth, basically, all these accelerators, all this knowledge, and I think we could train a model to help generating those from scratch.
I mean, we've been doing this 20 years, so there must be a lot of data to learn from.
Yeah, definitely. So it's very promising. Yes.
All right. I want to thank you all for joining and listening, and hope it was helpful. I liked it. There's some thumbs up coming in, so thank you, Gerk-Jan. High five.
Yeah.
And we'll close it off for now, and hope to see you in a month again.
Maybe someone can go a little bit more into the back end.
I think that makes sense. We'll go into the back end. Let's agree to that. Okay. Thank you all. Close it up. Bye bye.